The people of California live under a terrible shadow. They know that one day the San Andreas Fault will rupture, unleashing an enormous earthquake. But all this time, an even more powerful hazard lies just a little further north. It's a completely different fault, and it's going to unleash an earthquake up to 30 times more devastating than anything the San Andreas Fault can produce. The source of all this danger lies deep beneath the waters of the Pacific Northwest coast. It's a huge gash in the Earth's crust that's nearly 1,000 kilometres long. It runs from British Columbia in Canada and ends in Northern California. It's called the Cascadia Fault. The Cascadia Fault lies on what geologists call a subduction zone. A subduction zone is where two giant plates meet head to head, and one of them gets pushed right down under the other. Subduction zones can produce the biggest earthquakes on the planet.
Generally speaking, if you have two great masses of rock and you're scraping them one underneath the other, they're not going to move very easily. You're going to get a lot of friction there. And I liken it to sort of two cheese graters pushing past one another. Very, very difficult to get any smooth sort of movement there.
Subduction zones cause earthquakes when the plate that's being pushed down gets stuck. As it pushes, the upper plate gets squeezed and distorted. Eventually, the strain becomes too much. The upper plate slips, and that's what creates a rare event, a megathrust earthquake. The power of an earthquake depends on the size of the fault that breaks. And there's something unique about subduction zone earthquake faults. With most earthquakes, only one small part of a fault line shifts, the part that's snagged. The section that breaks can cause violent shaking and devastation in the immediate area. But when a subduction fault ruptures, something quite different happens. It can unzip along the entire length of the fault line for hundreds of kilometres. The effect goes way beyond the reach of any normal earthquake event. The Cascadia subduction zone is almost 1,000 kilometres long. If it does rupture along its full length, then scientists believe the next Cascadia earthquake will be one of the largest ever recorded, a magnitude 9 or greater. That's a terrifying prospect for the people of the Pacific region. When the Cascadia Fault ruptures, the shock waves will fan out across the whole northwest coast of the continent. And lying directly in its path are major cities like Vancouver, Seattle and Portland. But it's not just its power that would be so devastating. As the fault ruptures, it will unzip at over 10,000 kilometres an hour. Even at that speed, it will take 5 minutes to travel the entire length of the fault line. A 5-minute earthquake is far longer than normal.
The duration of the event is very unusual. And in that sense alone, it can cause more damage. A quake that goes on for longer causes more damage generally than one that is over within 10 or 20 seconds.
And the big question is, when will it happen? Forecasting earthquakes is notoriously difficult, and no one can say when Cascadia will rupture again. But it's possible to look back at the geological record and see how frequently they've happened in the past. Sure enough, the Washington coast does hold traces of several past megathrust earthquakes. In the United States, tree rings, Native American legends and geological evidence all indicate that the Cascadian fault line has ruptured 5 times in the last 2,500 years. So when will it happen next? You can calculate that according to when it last ruptured. And according to the geological record, the last time that happened was in 1700. That's 300 years ago, and in the past, it has ruptured at roughly 300-year intervals. So the next Cascadia earthquake could be just around the corner. We just don't know. And for the people of the Pacific coast, that's a pretty troubling thought to live with.
It seems to me that earthquakes will always bring devastation to our planet.